The Hardships of a Revolutionary Soldier, Joseph Plum Martin's Campaign of 1779. Hey there, history buffs. Welcome back to the channel where we dive deep into the untold stories of the past. Today, we're shedding light on the gritty, unfiltered experiences of a Continental soldier during the American Revolution. Meet Joseph Plum Martin, a young man who didn't just witness history, he lived it, breathed it, and endured it. His memoirs give us an insider's look into the daily struggles that soldiers faced, far beyond the romanticized tales of glory and triumph. Let's journey back to the harsh winter of 1779. It's the beginning of 1779, and our Continental Army is settling into winter quarters. But instead of cozy cabins and hearty meals, these guys are dealing with freezing temperatures, knee-deep snow, and rations that would make your stomach turn. Joseph writes about how they got a little bad bread and salt beef, which they suspected was actually horse meat. Constant snowstorms and biting cold made every day a battle for survival. One evening, after roll call, the men had just had enough. They gathered, unarmed but resolute, in front of their huts. Their officers quickly got wind of the situation, expressing sorrow and making promises that things would get better. The soldiers went back to their huts, but sleep was elusive. They rigged up an old gun barrel, packed it with powder, and set it off like the world's most annoying alarm clock. The officers would come running, only to find nothing. Fast forward a bit, and conditions hadn't improved. The soldiers decided to up the ante. They turned out with their arms, appointed a commander, and planned to march home if their grievances weren't addressed. The officers rushed to intervene, leading to a tense standoff. Eventually, the officers made more promises, and the men reluctantly returned to their huts. Back in their huts, the grim reality set in. The temporary fixes did little to fill empty stomachs. Supplies remained scarce, and the soldiers had to make do with what little they had. Despite feeling forgotten and neglected, they remained committed to the cause. It's a testament to the human spirit's ability to endure, even in the toughest of times. Finally, some good news. Joseph managed to get a furlough, a 15-day pass to visit his family, who lived about 30 miles away. He set off on foot with no food and just a few worthless Continental bills in his pocket. Exhaustion and hunger hit hard. He stumbled upon an old woman's home for shelter. Eventually, Joseph reached his grandparents' home, where the joy was immeasurable. But time was short and duty called. Back at camp, Joseph was sent off with a detachment to New London to guard the fortifications. They were still starving, resorting to eating worm-infested ship's biscuits. Joseph shared anecdotes about the locals, including a landlady who didn't like you soldiers because previous ones had stolen her dinner. On their march back, Joseph and his unit crossed paths with local militia groups. The Continental soldiers weren't exactly impressed by the militia. Joseph recounts the exchanges with civilians, like one village woman's reaction to their swearing, leading to a cheeky exchange. To break the monotony, Joseph and his mates engaged in creative entertainment. They found an old wagon wheel and decided to roll it down a hill near their barracks. The wheel veered off course, but miraculously caused no harm. These antics highlight how the soldiers coped with stress and boredom. The British were making moves up the Hudson River, capturing strategic points like Stony Point. The Continental Army mobilized to counter these advances, leading to some critical engagements. One was General Mad Anthony Wayne's daring nighttime assault to recapture Stony Point. Tryon launched brutal raids on the Connecticut coast, burning towns like New Haven. The Continental brigades, including Joseph's unit, were dispatched to pursue Tryon's forces. It was a harsh reminder of the war's impact on civilians. Later in the fall, Joseph's unit was sent back to dismantle British fortifications. They dealt with the usual lack of food and shelter, sleeping in the woods. They found leftover peas left by the British, which were too hard to soften even by boiling. Joseph recalls an execution of a cavalryman for desertion. The execution was somber, but an unprofessional hangman's actions triggered outrage among the soldiers. They pelted him and the brigade major with stones until they fled. As winter approached, it was time to move to new quarters. Joseph's unit marched to Baskin Ridge, New Jersey. They had little to no food and slept in makeshift shelters, if at all. Joseph describes this march as battling hunger, cold, nakedness, and hard duty. Upon arriving, the soldiers immediately set about building winter huts. They constructed these log huts with remarkable ingenuity. Despite their exhaustion, it was a small respite, a home in the midst of chaos. So there you have it, a raw, unfiltered glimpse into the life of Joseph Plumb Martin during the 1779 campaign. Despite unimaginable hardships, Joseph and his fellow soldiers didn't waver in their commitment. Their story is about resilience, camaraderie, and the human spirit's ability to endure and adapt.